Let's talk about North Korea. I mean, think about it. By all logic, this country should be a total economic basket case. It's buried under sanctions, completely cut off from the world's financial system, and yet somehow it doesn't just survive. It's building nuclear weapons. So the real question isn't if it survives, but how. How does a nation this isolated actually pay for everything? Well, that's the secret we're going to try and unlock today.
We're about to peel back the layers of a really strange and secret economy. It's this bizarre mix of, some legitimate trade, a whole lot of state-sponsored crime, and just sheer desperation. It is a crazy, complex system that's been built for one reason, and one reason only, to keep the regime alive.
All right, so where do we even begin? Let's start with the part of the economy you can actually see, the official part. And that story really begins and ends with its giant next-door neighbor, China. Despite all the sanctions you hear about, there's one country that's basically keeping the lights on.
And when I say keeping the lights on, I'm not kidding. Look at these numbers. This isn't just a partnership, it's a total lifeline. Over 90%, let that sink in, 90% of North Korea's official trade is with China. To put it bluntly, if Beijing walked away, the official North Korean economy would just stop. So what are they actually selling? Well, on paper, it's pretty much what you'd guess. They've got a lot of natural resources, so they're exporting things like coal, minerals, seafood, and making some clothes. Seems pretty standard, right? But with North Korea, the standard rules just never apply. And here's where the whole story takes a really weird turn, because all that stuff like coal and seafood, it's heavily sanctioned. So Pyongyang had to get creative. They had to pivot to something that's way harder to track and, as it turns out, is incredibly profitable. Wigs and fake eyelashes. No, seriously, it sounds absolutely wild, but at certain points, these beauty products have made up more than half of the country's official exports to China. It's actually a masterclass in adapting to sanctions, right? When they block your main products, you just find a niche, high-value market and completely dominate it. The only problem is you still have to hide where it's all coming from.
And to do that, they play this constant cat-and-mouse game out on the open ocean. We're talking about ships meeting in the dead of night to transfer goods. They'll switch off their location transponders so they literally vanish from tracking systems. And it's all hidden behind this complicated web of fake shell companies and flying flags from other countries to disguise the real origin.
Okay, so dodging sanctions on the high seas is one thing, but the regime figured out pretty quickly it's way more profitable to just skip the semi-legal stuff and go straight to the completely illegal. Welcome to the world of digital heists. And this isn't just a few rogue hackers. This is a state-run industry. The state has trained these elite teams of hackers, and they have names straight out of a spy movie. You've probably heard of the Lazarus Group. Their job is brutally simple. Steal as much money and as many secrets as you possibly can. Their targets? Banks, cryptocurrency exchanges, tech companies. Basically anyone with a digital wallet.
And the amount of money we're talking about is just staggering. I mean, get this. Over $1 billion stolen in crypto in just a single year. This isn't some side hustle for them. It's become a core part of their national budget. It is a global digital bank robbery, and honestly, their hackers are some of the best in the business.
So where is all that stolen crypto cash going? Well, this is the really crucial part. Every single dollar they steal goes directly into funding Pyongyang's military ambitions. This isn't for buying luxury cars, it's for building nuclear warheads and ballistic missiles. It's a perfect, vicious cycle. They use the money from crime to build the weapons that get them sanctioned in the first place. But if you think the crime is only happening online, you'd be wrong. The regime has a long history of getting its hands dirty with good old-fashioned organized crime. The line between being a government and being a criminal enterprise gets really blurry really fast. For decades, North Korea has been tied to all sorts of shady stuff. I'm talking about printing near-perfect counterfeit $100 bills. They called them super notes. They've been caught manufacturing and smuggling huge amounts of meth, and of course, trafficking illegal weapons to whoever will buy them.
And here's the wild part. One of the key players in all of this? Their own diplomats. So on the one hand, they're presenting this respectable face to the world, but on the other, their embassies are often just hubs for illegal smuggling. That diplomatic immunity is the perfect cover for moving everything from gold and rhino horns to drugs and cash.
But the regime's list of exports doesn't just stop at drugs and weapons. One of its most dependable sources of cash is its own people. They send tens of thousands of them overseas to work, often in just awful conditions.
You can find North Korean workers everywhere, from construction sites and logging camps in Russia and China to factories and restaurants in the Middle East and Africa. And altogether, these workers send back hundreds of millions of dollars in hard currency to the regime, year after year.
And here is the absolutely brutal math behind this system. The workers themselves, they barely see any of the money they earn. The state just takes it. Up to 90% of their salary is seized and sent back to Pyongyang, leaving them with just enough to scrape by. It's basically a state-run system of forced labor on a global scale. Okay, so with the government focused on all these grand, illicit schemes, you have to ask, how do regular North Koreans actually eat? How do they survive day to day? Well, that brings us to the final, and maybe the most fascinating layer of this economy, the one the people built for themselves.
And to understand this, you gotta know this one word, jangmadang. These are basically informal street markets that have popped up all over the country. Now, technically, they're not really legal, but in reality, they've become the actual backbone of daily life for most people.
And in these markets, you can find everything that the official state system can't provide. We're talking food, clothes, household goods, even smuggled stuff from China like electronics. It's this incredible grassroots capitalist system that was born purely out of necessity.
So you might be wondering, why on earth would a totalitarian state let these private markets exist? Well, it comes down to a really pragmatic, unspoken deal. For one, the markets keep people fed, which stops them from getting restless. 2, it takes a ton of pressure off the state to provide for everyone. And 3, local officials are more than happy to take a few bribes to just look the other way.
So when you step back and you piece all of this together, you get this patchwork economy that's unlike anything else in the world. It's contradictory, it's criminal, and it's bizarrely resilient. It's a system built on secrets and designed for one thing: survival.
So let's recap. You've got the official trade lifeline, almost entirely dependent on China. You have the high-tech digital heists stealing billions. You've got the old-school criminal rackets. You have the exploitation of their own people working abroad. And underneath it all, you have the people's markets just trying to get by. Every single one of these pillars, legal or illegal, is absolutely essential to keeping the lights on in Pyongyang.
Think of it like a hydra, the mythical beast. For decades, the world has tried to cut off one head. You sanction their trade, you freeze their assets. But every time, 2 more heads seem to grow in its place, like cybercrime or wig exports. The system has proven to be incredibly tough to kill. But the ultimate question has to be, how long can a country really last when its entire economy is built on such a fragile foundation of crime, coercion, and desperation?